beyond the you saw Batman's dick in a mature reader's Batman comic, how did this get out the door?
Come on and visit for any occasion. Don't keep patting down waiting. Comics and conversation. Keep the conversation moving along. Keep reading comics, keep your local store strong. If it's hard, then it's a job for the challengers. Comics and conversation, y'all.
From Challengers Comics and Conversation in Chicago, this is Contest of Challengers. And now, here are Patrick Brower and W. Dal Bush.
Hey, Dal, cold enough for you?
It is so cold. I had to go outside today to take the garbage out, and God, did I regret it almost immediately. And I was only outside for 45 seconds.
I walked to and from work.
That's dumb. You shouldn't have done that.
It was fine.
You should not have done that.
It was totally fine.
You'll die.
You know why it's fine? There was no wind.
That does help.
Yeah, that made it
Oh,
completely tolerable. I was colder yesterday, when yesterday was much warmer.
Mm-hmm.
Although, you would think that it was a blizzard if you just looked at our sales for the last 2 days.
Yeah. Oh, January.
Thursday and Friday combined add up to an okay Thursday.
Yeah. Combined.
Yeah, it's like I could have not been there today.
Maybe that would have been for the best.
Ironically, we had the exact same amount of transactions both days, and we're within $20 of each day.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That's rough, dude.
Yeah. I mean, look, they weren't terrible days. They weren't good days at all. Mm-hmm. But they were, of course, valuable in being open.
Yeah, better than $0.
Sure. And we, as I was telling club member Artie White, we hit Iron Man Day before the day was half over, so that's good.
All you can ask for.
That is literally all we ask for. Although, coming up, we're going to ask for more because we can't say to Diamond Comics, hey, it's been real cold, we can't pay you.
Yeah.
But we'll work that out. Speaking of working things out, like that segue?
Let's see.
I mean, it was all right.
I don't know what it segued into.
I have worked out what our new tenant is.
Okay, what's that?
To recap, and that's not recapping because we haven't talked about it, have we? Mm-hmm. There is something new being built into the spot that the vape shop used to occupy. First, it was Mr. Amazing Loans. Mm-hmm. Then it was the vape shop, or was it something in between? I can't remember.
I can't remember.
Oh, no. First, it was Cricket.
Yeah, then it was Loans.
Yeah. First, it was Cricket
shop.
Wireless. Then it was Mr. Amazing Loans. Then it was the Cloud Vapor Lounge. Then it was empty for 2 years. And now they're building, and they've dissected it, and have very low windows, and they were adding a whole bunch of ductwork, so I was convinced it was a kitchen or some sort of restaurant with minimal seating up front and ovens and stoves and things and refrigeration in the back. I was wrong. I'm going to give you the same clue I gave Gina. Mm-hmm. It's a visual clue, so I have to describe it.
Okay.
I am using my thumb to rub against my first two fingers.
Is it a currency exchange?
So, Gina said, it's a bank. And, oh wait, no, she didn't say that. I forgot what she said. Anyway, it's a bank.
Like an actual bank?
Like a ATM kiosk thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we know for what bank?
I don't remember if I knew.
Okay.
If I did, I forgot. But it didn't stick in my head.
Wow. All right, whatever.
So guess how I figured out?
You asked one of the construction people.
I asked them, yeah. It was pretty funny. I walk over, I'm like, hey guys, we're just curious. What is this going to be? And the one looked at me and said, a comic store.
It's a pretty good gag.
Yeah, it's a pretty good gag.
Pretty good gag.
Right? There's a whole bunch of other things about that we will talk about later.
Okay.
But I gave them a little history of the building, and it might, talking to them about the building, answered a lot of questions that they had that they didn't realize they could have just asked us about.
Sure.
But nonetheless, there's a new tenant coming in.
Okay.
Sooner rather than later. And that's always fun for us.
It's a learning experience.
But, and I don't know if this is coincidental or not, or if it's going to come into effect at all. I assume it won't, but it's also just another clever segue. We have completely updated our security system at the store.
Yeah.
We have changed providers, and we have changed a lot of where cameras and motion detectors and things are, and we've added a few new elements at their suggestion all across the front. Mm-hmm. And these guys have been nothing but a dream to deal with. If anybody's interested, security doctors. Dal found them.
Did I?
Yeah. Yeah, you did.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Well, good work.
You're welcome.
You have no recollection of that?
No.
They've been a delight to work with. They've answered all of our questions. There have been some, not issues, but things we didn't fully understand that they've explained. And they are considerably cheaper than what we were paying for better service.
We're paying less for better service, is what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Why did I describe it badly?
The sentence construction made it sound like we were previously getting better service and now we're not.
Oh, no. We're getting better service now, and we're paying less money for it, and I feel more comfortable about it. Mm-hmm. But there are, again, things we need to talk about after the fact.
Okay.
For what they need to come and finish on Monday.
All right, that just means this episode's going to be shorter because I have an hour. And if the non-show stuff is going to take up time, then the show has to be shorter.
You know how many times I've said I've had an hour?
Uh-huh.
And that's when you do your, like, oh, it's 1:40.
Hey,
let's keep going.
Okay, let's talk about a movie that came out.
Not even that.
No.
Boy, what a week it's been, huh?
It has. It's been at least 7 days.
Has it?
Maybe more.
Maybe. I don't know. We did this last week, right? I meant in the comics industry, silly.
Mm-hmm.
So much has happened. Look, I have a little thing of lists. I'm going to cross off New Tenant.
Okay.
I'm going to cross off Weather, because we briefly talked about Weather.
We did.
Even though we're only 6 minutes in. And I'm going to cross off New Security System. There, all of those things have been crossed off. You should be worried about this sheet of paper I have, because it is a thing you have to read later in this recording. Okay. Not out loud, but you'll have to read it.
Okay.
So we can discuss it.
Okay.
And then I'll tell people what you're reading when you read it.
Okay.
I feel like that was dumb to talk about it now since we're not doing it now.
Already happened.
I mean, meh. That's just the way it works. Last week, I talked about a book that I read and liked very much that will be coming out in March.
Yeah.
It was Invisible Kingdom #1. And you had not read it yet.
Right.
And you have read it.
I did, yes.
And did you like it?
I did like it.
Will you be elaborating on that or not?
I can, sure.
Or do you not remember it already?
No, it was good. You really loved it, and maybe that colored it a bit for me, but I enjoyed it. It's just got the same problem that I feel like almost every first issue I read now has, which is writing for the trade. Like, there's a sense of, I don't know what the story's supposed to be yet, and that's the least I should get out of a first issue. It sets up some interesting characters and an interesting world, and the artwork's beautiful. I just, like you were saying, you know, what's the elevator pitch? Nothing's happened yet, so I don't know. Like, it's a weird thing of, I can vaguely tell you the themes that are being addressed. Like, I think I described it to you as, like, existential dread and late-stage capitalism. Like, it's very much about people who, when capitalism reaches a certain stage, there's maybe a lack of emotional or spiritual fulfillment, and kind of how societies deal with that, how individuals within that society deal with it. But that's not a story, that's a theme. And I don't know what the story is yet. And that, I don't want to lay all that at the feet of Invisible Kingdom. And, you know, if you're someone who really loves the first issue, or is at least intrigued by it, you'll probably read enough issues to get what the story is going to be. But there's a lot of people who are going to pay $4, and the very least they want is, what story are you telling me? And to not even give people that strikes me as the height of creator hubris in 2019. As though, well, everyone's going to read 6 issues, so it's fine. Do whatever you want. You know, pace it out however you want. Make the 4th issue just a magazine instead of telling a story that you were telling. Make the entire first issue just exposition without starting the story. Like, these are things where you can't do that. You don't have that sort of bottomless goodwill from the audience. The audience, A, isn't big enough, and B, isn't wealthy enough to just support every project like this.
Well, Dal, you've fallen right into my trap.
Okay.
because just yesterday I got to read Little Bird #1.
Oh, yeah?
Have you read it yet?
I haven't. I usually, unless it's something I'm aching to read, PDFs like that I usually let pile up, or I don't read them because I don't care enough. I do plan on reading both Assassination and Little Bird #1. I just haven't done it yet.
Well, Little Bird #1, very good.
Okay.
And first of all, it is a 36-page story for $3.99.
Okay.
Second of all, it's a story.
Okay.
It is the exact opposite of what you just described.
Is it at least as good as Saga and Akira put together? Because that's what I go and expect.
I know. Now, I describe...
Honestly, to as a real quick aside, the new catalog...
We talked about it last week.
No, I was going to say, nearly every Image book that's in the new catalog, like a new series for April, has the same high-selling book meets another high-selling book, or whatever. And it's like, is someone at the Image, like, promotional... Whoever is putting together the previews listings, are they the one who's deciding, you know what, we should make everything sound like it's as good as Watchmen, or as good as Saga, or as good as Wicked and Divine, or as good as Jack Kirby's Fantastic Four, or whatever. It's just like, let's manage our expectations, you know? That's okay. It's an okay thing to do. Anyway.
Really like Little Bird.
Okay.
The art is amazing. Like, the art on Invisible Kingdom is gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
The art on Little Bird is equally gorgeous in a completely different way.
I like Ian Bertram. I talked about this last week. I like Ian Bertram.
So I've been talking to Darcy von Poltergeist this week, which, by the way, that is not his actual name.
Not his real name.
It's the way I remember it, though. And I had said that...
It's Dory Van Poltergeist, right?
I'd said that Little Bird is going to replace House of Penance as the book that comes after Ian Bertram's name.
Okay. That's good.
Really well done. Really, I got a strong We Stand on Guard feel to it.
Okay.
I mean, not just because it's partly Canadian,
Okay.
but it's also like a great X-23 vibe to it.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah, really enjoyed it.
Okay.
And then you had mentioned the next book I was going to say, Assassination, because I read that as well. Loved it. So much fun.
Cool.
It is an over-the-top, extremely violent, very funny crime mystery type book where the world's former greatest hitman hires the world's top 20 current assassins as his bodyguards.
Okay.
And it's Erica Henderson and Kyle Starks, and it is I didn't know what to expect, and I loved it. And it's been a long time since there were 3 independent books that I'm this excited for.
Okay.
I like it so much that today at the store I made 3 call sheets for them.
Okay.
Don't know, they're just sitting on the counter. I don't know where they're going to go.
Mm-hmm.
But just to get people excited, because we haven't had books we can rally around in a while.
Okay.
And I feel really good pitching these and recommending these to people.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, we'll have to order a bunch.
it's a little weird because you've only read one of them and didn't like it as much as I did. But I think that might be different.
I didn't dislike it.
Right, no, I know. I just said as much as I did.
Sure.
But
I just want to be clear on that. Like, my review is not, it's bad. My review is, I liked the first issue. I just wish that
You knew where it was going.
I had a better idea of what story they were telling.
I hope my love for Assassination and Invisible Kingdom doesn't color your expectations.
Oh, I don't think it will.
Here's what I don't like.
Mm-hmm.
All 3 of those books come out within 2 weeks of each other.
Awesome.
In fact, Little Bird and... I'm sorry, Assassination and Invisible Kingdom. Wait, I got that right? Okay. Man, I can't remember now. I think I got it backwards.
2 of them come out on the same day.
Yeah, but I thought it was both Image books, but it might not be. And I was going to complain about that.
Sure.
Here's a neat, fun thing that happened, a very small thing. The Immortal Hulk Volume 3 trade collects the Hulk Goes to Hell story.
Mm-hmm.
And the cover that they solicited for it was the cover from an issue that hasn't come out yet, where it's Doc Samson talking to the Hulk.
Right.
Hulk sitting in the chair, Doc Samson psychoanalyzing him.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big fan of Doc Samson. That's a really boring cover for that story.
They can't all be him jumping into a flaming mouth.
Right. But the story is called Hulk Goes to Hell.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't use that. The psychoanalyzing cover.
So-
I'd probably use the jumping into a flaming mouth cover. If I had a choice.
There's, in fact, a different one. On the Marvel boards, a retailer named Joey Boyack from Comic Kings in Virginia Beach had brought this up and said, hey, why don't you use this cover? And it's the emaciated Hulk crawling out of a fire pit.
Sure. The R.I.P. Stan Lee cover.
Yeah. And Marvel said, yeah, you're right. We will.
Anything's got to be better than Hulk Goes to Hell. Here he is with his psychiatrist.
Well, they said initially the trade was going to be called something else.
Uh-huh.
But now that it is called Hulk Goes to Hell, it should.
Okay.
But I mean, how great was it that a retailer suggests a change for a book for the better?
Sure.
And Marvel says, yeah, you're right, let's do it.
That is great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was surprised by that because things always get complained about on message boards or the internet, and most of the time the publishers
It's not productive.
don't pay attention.
A lot of times, it's complaints in either in a private forum that get really aggressive and personal, or in a public forum that's just also aggressive and personal, and it leads to a publisher saying, well, I don't want to listen to you because that's rewarding bad behavior. So being able to say, hey, I think this might be a better choice, and you've already got the art paid for, like, maybe you should use this instead. I think this would fit the book better. Like, that's helpful criticism.
So what do you think of the DC changes, the staff changes, and the happenings in their offices this week?
The reorganization, I mean, anytime there's a reorganization that reduces headcount, I always feel bad for the people who were reduced.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's not their fault. It's nothing that they were personally responsible for. I find that aspect of corporate downsizing and reorganization really sad.
Oftentimes it just seems like you had the biggest paycheck, so you're saving us the most money.
That was two of the VPs that were let go. That was one analysis I read, that since they had been there the longest and had tenure and they had high paychecks, like, they were going to get cut. The thing, I guess, to consider with all the DC stuff is that, the micro way of looking at it is, DC Comics and their performance in the direct market and the book trade. Honestly, I think a lot of it is the much larger AT&T owns Warner Brothers now, and every single division of Warner Brothers is under the microscope.
Yeah.
AT&T took on a lot of debt to buy Warner Brothers, and so everything is, A, how can you make money faster, and B, how can you do it with less overhead? So, I mean, that is basically someone's job at Warner Brothers now, is to look at DC Comics and go, all right, let's look at every element of your publishing and decide what stays, what goes, who's in charge of it, what divisions move around, what divisions get shuttered. I don't know that it means a lot for publishing right now. Anytime there's a reorganization this high up in the food chain, you might not see the effects of it for 6 months at a minimum. I don't think it's going to be like tomorrow, someone else is writing Justice League, or...
I mean, that's the same thing with
whatever.
C.B. Cebulski taking over from Axel Alonso.
Yeah, but that's even lower down in the food chain.
Yeah.
That'll have an effect on the publishing, because that's the job of the person, is to make changes to publishing. The other sort of stuff, like, they didn't, to my knowledge, let go or move around Dan DiDio or Jim Lee. Bob Harris is still editor-in-chief.
Yeah, that's sad.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, some people that I would not have been terribly sad to see them in different positions. That would have been okay for me. Again, I don't want anyone necessarily to lose their job, but certainly people you can point to and go, they were not doing a great job, and maybe they could do a different job. I don't know anything in particular, have any real theories as to what's going to happen to DC, because I think it's far too early.
Well, one of the people that has moved on was John Cunningham.
Yeah.
And
he was in sales, is that right?
What it turns out that
marketing?
He was basically the new Bob Wayne, but Bob Wayne, he still worked there. He worked there when Bob Wayne worked there as well?
Yeah. He'd been there 13 years, I think is what I read.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because on the one hand, I read a long piece by David Harper, who had met and talked with John Cunningham and thought he was a genius. And then I heard from retailers who did not have a strong opinion of him, and it turns out that John Cunningham himself did not have a strong opinion of the direct market and had
I'm okay with that.
said things about how much easier his job would be if he didn't have to deal with comic stores.
Sure. I don't know that I would feel differently if I were him. I have said any number of times that my heart goes out to the people at the publishing level that have to accept criticism and deal directly with the direct market, because, oh my God, that must be the most difficult job in all of comics, is having to be the face of a company that has to deal with retailers. Because, man, oh man. No, I would not envy that job.
I mean, I have to deal with a retailer usually often.
Yeah, same here. And rough.
Super rough.
Hard job. I
talked to my people on the ground at DC, and they're all still where they were.
Okay.
But they still don't know the effects, and there was going to be more in-depth meetings after I talked to them.
As we're recording this was announced yesterday, so it's way too early to know exactly how things are going to shake out and how it's going to affect not just DC's publishing, but also, their initiatives for the book trade, like Ink and Zoom, specifically DC Direct move over to their consumer products division. So what that's going to mean for DC Direct. DC Direct especially is a thing that I don't think you'll see changes immediately, because so much of their manufacturing
so far in advance
is laid out 12 to 18 months in advance. I mean, even if they said, okay, for the May catalog that comes out in a month, no DC Direct stuff is going to be in there, you'd still see DC Direct products like basically through the end of 2019.
Just so long as I get my Jenny Prison and Wonder Woman statue in the end of July.
Let's hope. But yeah, it's interesting for sure. I obviously, the direct market on the publishing side is very precarious as far as how little it would take necessarily to turn the whole industry into a downturn. So anytime there's big shakeups at the top of the food chain for a publisher, you can get a little nervous. And I think, a little bit of nerves or anxiety is not out of order for the direct market retailers. It's just too early to tell. I don't know that it's good or bad. I don't know how it's going to affect things.
And we don't even know the full job responsibilities of the people that have been let go. Yeah.
Mark Chiarello did Wednesday Comics, so that alone, that's a Hall of Fame idea right there.
Yeah.
So it's sad to see him go. And John Cunningham, again, I didn't really have any personal dealings with him, but the Comics Pro speech he gave for the DC Comics portion of the Comics Pro annual membership meeting that we went to, I thought was really strong. He seemed like he had a good grasp on kind of what DC was doing right and what they were doing wrong, and how they were going to take advantage of some of the successes they'd had with Rebirth and the upcoming, at that time, Wonder Woman movie. I didn't have interactions with him that I disliked, and certainly hearing that he found working with the direct market challenging means that I don't have any reason to dislike him. But, I'd be lying if I didn't say that the DC's publishing was flawless. So if there's a shakeup, my hope is that the shakeup results in a stronger company with a better perspective on what they're trying to do and better plans to achieve their goals. I don't know if this is something we'll talk about, but there's been a few things lately where DC as a company has kind of stumbled as far as getting different stories out and maybe not considering what the markets for those stories are.
Oh, we'll talk about them.
And so that's something that maybe a top-level shakeup could have maybe a better focus on understanding your market and serving that market correctly.
Well, there's two specific things I wanted to talk about from DC in that regard. Mm-hmm. And one of them, since you just brought it up, was the story around Tom King's Superman Walmart comic.
Yeah.
Specifically...
Issue 7, is that right?
The most recent one. In a dream sequence, if you will, mm-hmm. a daydream sequence, where Superman is unable to contact Lois Lane, his mind starts to go to the darkest places, and it is 12 or 13 pages of her being murdered or killed in ways he can't save her. And while none of that actually happens to the character, it is depicted as happening. And it seemed very violent and off-putting.
Yeah, I haven't read the issue. Again, it's a Walmart comic, so I don't have access to it. I will absolutely read Tom King's Superman story when it comes out in a collected format, probably later this year, I assume. And I like Tom King as a writer. I liked a lot of his stories. So mostly what I know about this story is like your description right now, Patrick. So I haven't seen the pages. It sounds, just on the face of it, like just a bad idea for a story. I read Tom King's response where he went into detail about how, you know, as a husband, when you can't get a hold of your spouse, sometimes you start to worry about why you can't get a hold of them. Why aren't they answering their phone, or why aren't they responding to texts? And it starts as a little bit of a, you know, annoyance, and then it turns into this, what if something's wrong? What if they can't get to their phone because, you know, something happened to them? And, you know, you don't want to think that, but the fear of it, of something happening to someone you care about, makes your mind think of these things, and how horrifying that is to be powerless in that situation, and sort of taking that and applying that to Superman. Even with that explanation, I just think fundamentally it's a bad idea. Just on the face of it, it's just a bad idea to do that story. I don't think Superman imagining his wife being brutally murdered, I don't want a Superman that thinks about that. You know what I mean? I don't want a Superman that's like, God, I hope Lois doesn't get killed by the Joker, or by Lex Luthor, or by Cheetah, or by a meteorite, or by, you know, a sinkhole, or whatever. Like, I don't. That's not interesting to me, regardless of how, you know, quote unquote realistic it is. I'm not reading a Superman story for realism. You know what I mean? Like, relatable, sure. Realism, you don't have to go that far.
And I'm sure there's an easier way to show his concern, not graphically 13 pages worth.
Yeah, and that's kind of the part too, is with the way that a lot of people are rightly re-examining certain tropes in comics, including, you know, something horrible happening to a woman to motivate a man. To do 12 pages of that makes me feel like no one at any stage of production had the foresight to go, hey, this might look really bad to people. Like, this might not be achieving the goal in the story that you want it to, so much as becoming a talking point, which is maybe not what you want to happen in a comic story, is for it to be emblematic of a tone deafness that people would maybe hope that superhero comics have grown out of. The other problem, and to me the biggest problem, is this was in a Walmart comic that my understanding of it from day one has been an outreach thing, you know? Not specifically for younger readers, but in general for like
new readers,
general audiences. So going with something where one full chapter is Lois Lane gets brutally murdered page after page strikes me as something where, did Tom King, was he not told who the audience for this story was? Did the editor not think to say, hey, keep in mind, this is going to be sold to possibly like some kid in Walmart whose mom just buys him the Superman comic on the way out the door. Like, this is not a Black Label comic, you know? This is something that's for general and potentially younger audiences.
Well, yes, but so is the regular Superman comic.
Well, it's wrong there too, but at least with that one, you could make the argument. I don't know if I would consider the comics DC puts together for the direct market to necessarily be for younger audiences.
But they never outright said these Walmart books, these 100-page giants, are for kids.
No, but Jesus Christ.
And most of the stuff that's being reprinted is stuff that's been in the stores before for everybody.
But I'd hope in those cases they were picking and choosing issues that were maybe more appropriate. Like, this is the thing that kind of galls me about this particular thing, but it's, again, something that the DC as a whole, as a company, could maybe do a better job of. You look at real publishers like Scholastic and like Forsecond, and when they make a product, they know who it's for. They know what that market needs. They know how that market is scrutinized, so they make sure that the product they're making is something that is acceptable to that market. I don't know if DC ever has a discussion about who they're making these things for. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many different kinds of Batman book, and there's so many different kinds of Superman book, and so many different kinds of Justice League book. And I don't need every superhero comic to read the same, but just a basic thing of, if you're doing this for Walmart, if you're doing an outreach thing, it's like Free Comic Book Day, you know? How extreme should that content be? Even if you're doing a teen-oriented book, how do you tone that into what it needs to be? Do you know what I mean? Like, there's DC superhero comics that you can, put on the stand, and it's $4 and whatever, and this issue of Batman is Batman being psychologically tortured by Professor Pig or whatever. But I wouldn't take that issue of Batman and say, well, that should be the one that they make 600,000 copies of for Free Comic Book Day.
Right.
That's maybe not the one you do, because that's going to a different audience. Not just because it might go to a younger audience, but because it might go to an audience that basically doesn't need reasons to not read DC superhero comics. And I feel like that should be the goal of the Walmart books. And if it's not, why not? If the argument DC's making is, well, that's not the audience we're going after, why isn't it? That's almost the whole point of these things, to me as a retailer who doesn't have access to them, is to reach a new audience that doesn't know DC Comics. Why would you do something that a kid could read? Because no one at Walmart is going to go, well, that issue of Superman 80-page giant or 100-page giant, whatever,
100-page.
Has some really strong violence against Lois Lane. It's in a dream sequence, so she's not really being hurt, but it might be too extreme for a younger reader. No one at Walmart is going to tell a parent that. Nobody.
Nope.
So consider that, maybe, as a publisher. It's just so weird to me that this is something that happened. How did that happen? Beyond the you saw Batman's dick in a mature reader's Batman comic, how did this get out the door? How did no one at DC at any level, from, Tom King to Andy Kubert, who I think is the artist, to the letterer, to the people at the printer who are formatting the digital files, how did no one go, hey, this doesn't feel like a thing we should give to Walmart? I don't know. Don't understand it.
And then today, DC announced both of their Free Comic Day books.
They did.
Their gold level and their silver level.
They sure did.
And they are both previews of their Zoom and Ink books.
Yeah, the Ink one is their gold book, and it's the Catwoman one. And their Zoom book, which is for younger readers. Ink is for YA. Zoom is for middle grade. Their Zoom one is the silver book. Yeah, and I think the Ink one, that Catwoman full novel comes out the next week.
No.
Or the Wednesday
2 months later.
There's, I want to say I read something where it said May 7th.
I looked it up before this. It said July.
Okay, because...
And then the other one is August.
Okay, because the I'm going to bring up the press release that I read on The Beat said they were quoting in stores everywhere May 7th.
Okay, because that was one of my complaints.
Rightly so.
Because we're getting this to promote a book that comes out in 2 months or 3 months. And the younger readers one, it's going to be a fun book. It's drawn by Gustavo Duarte, who, of course, is a good friend of the stores.
Sure.
And it's a full Justice League book. But its on sale date is 3 months after the preview is given out. And the Catwoman one, is that Cami Garcia?
The Catwoman one is Lauren Miracle.
Oh, man. Wait, is it?
Is illustrated by Isaac Goodhart. Includes a preview of Raven by Cami Garcia and Gabriel Piccolo.
Oh, man.
Which is the first Ink book that's coming out. That one is in April.
Okay. At our ALA luncheon a few years ago, I got to talk to Cami Garcia.
The quote they have here, Catwoman Under the Moon will be released in full everywhere books are sold on May 7th, 2019. But see, they're quoting it, but it's not clear. I don't know where the Beat is getting this from necessarily.
What I was looking at was from DC's email today.
Raven is July 2nd. Dear Justice League is August 6th. Yeah, that's weird because the solicit text for Raven, because I was formatting it just a few hours ago, specifically states it's the first Ink book. So I gotta feel like this May 7th thing is...
Huh. Do you want to pull up the DC email from today? The direct currents was just about
let me do
Free
that.
Comic Book Day. That's where I got my information from.
Good idea. Yeah, Under the Moon, a Catwoman tale. Full graphic novel slated to hit stores everywhere. Books are sold on May 7th, 2019.
Man, did I read the Raven listing by mistake
Raven
at the
is
bottom?
July 2nd. Dear
Okay.
Justice League is August 6th.
Well, I'm
that's
glad
weird,
to be
'cause-
wrong about that, but with Raven being announced as either way,
Anyway.
that wasn't necessarily specifically what I was getting at, was
Okay.
the time frame. It was, like, the last few years, one of their books has always been a DC Superheroes Girls reprint
Sure, yeah, the silver one, I think.
of a book that had previously been out.
Yeah, which is good.
But I don't think that both of their books should be these.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing that they don't have anything specifically for their superhero line. The weirdest thing about this is that both of their Free Comic Book Day comics were like top secret,
Yeah.
and then it's like, oh, it's previews for books we already announced. Why was that top secret? Why did they not know this a month ago?
They announce it the day after our orders had to be turned in to Diamond.
Yeah, so I mean, we'll still have final order cutoff for those titles, so
Which
it's
is
not the end of
good,
the world.
because you gotta cut those in half.
They are going to go down some for sure.
I dramatically over-ordered because I thought
You didn't
at
know.
least one of them was going to be a big
Sure.
deal. Now, it's possible they could do what they did last year and be like, hey,
Here's the third one.
DC Nation #1 for a quarter.
It's possible.
But I wouldn't expect it.
I mean, it's possible, but yeah, it's. So on the one hand, you know, I applaud them for taking their new initiatives seriously. DC's had any number of non-mainstream superhero outreach initiative book programs, and they've all failed. Short, maybe Vertigo, but that one, wait a year and you could probably say failed. So the idea of them taking Free Comic Book Day, which is again a great outreach day, and saying, here are, you know, previews of these upcoming books. One comes out the next week. You know, they feature characters like Catwoman and the Justice League and Raven, and they're for audiences that maybe are not well served by DC normally. So on the one hand, I really applaud them for doing that. On the other hand, every single non-mainstream superhero outreach book project they've ever done has failed. So the idea of taking, you know, the one day a year where you're going to be able to put comics in the hands of people who may actually read them, and you're giving them things that maybe a year from now won't even exist, maybe feels like it's not a great idea. That said, a bunch of the actual DC superhero Free Comic Day comics they've done have also been for things that immediately failed. So I don't know, whatever. At the end of the day, it probably doesn't matter. I don't think we've been shy about saying that, you know, the goal of Free Comic Day comics isn't necessarily to create sustained readership, because no one comes back for these books, you know?
But we always have that hope.
It's the hope, and maybe that'll work this time. You know, they'll have a single graphic novel they can come get instead of an ongoing series they've already missed issues of or whatever. Yeah, I gotta say, I wasn't thrilled when I saw that it would be 2 excerpt books.
I'm
for other
completely
markets.
fine with either one of them being either the gold or the silver. I don't really care which is which, but I would have liked a #1 that ties into the DC universe in some way.
Yeah,
I don't know why I said #1. Just a comic that would promote their actual universe of comic books.
There's a lot of people that would grab a DC superhero comic, you know, featuring Catwoman in a way that they maybe won't pick up a free comic that's a YA version of Teen Catwoman.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's an audience, and it's a, you know, in general, it's a very sizable audience. I don't know if it's the audience that's coming out for Free Comic Book Day, and I don't know if that's what they're looking for from a free DC comic. But I guess we'll find out. I don't know. Maybe I'm way wrong on this. Maybe people are going to snap it up. We sell, you know, 20 copies of the Catwoman ink book the next week. Sure. Happy to have that be one of the outcomes.
Oh yeah, I'd love it. I'd absolutely love it,
Sure.
and I would absolutely say that they were right and I was wrong.
Sure.
If that's the case.
Holy crap, I'd love that.
Yeah, I'd be ecstatic to do that.
Yeah. To be clear, anytime we're wrong in a way that results in more sales than we were expecting, we will absolutely tell you. That will be on the podcast. That will be a thing that we talk about, if that ever happens. When the few times that does happen, where we're pleasantly surprised, oh yeah, we'll talk about it.
Sure.
I don't have any... I'm not so proud that I can't say that I was wrong and a publisher was right. It just feels like we don't say that a whole lot.
Well, maybe we'll get the chance to do that with publisher TKO, because after we talked about them, I think twice in the recent past,
Yeah.
they listened to retailers and completely changed their terms of service.
Yeah, that's great.
And as a result, we bought their first line of graphic novels.
We did, yeah. We got a few copies of Sarah, which is the war graphic novel by Garth Ennis and Steve Epting. We bought a few other ones, Goodbye Paradise, and
Doctor something or other.
2 other ones.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I don't either. There were only 4 available to us at the first time, so we tried them all.
Yeah, it was weird because basically, like, there's Sarah, which is like, oh, Garth Ennis and Steve Epting. Like, that's a great creative team. You know, it's a Garth Ennis war comic. Well, I know who that sells to. And then there's, like, a Josh Dysart L.A. crime thing. Okay, that sounds pretty cool. And then, like, 2 by someone, I'm like, who is this? Oh, it's the guy who's a producer on Gotham who I think maybe...
He's the publisher of this.
Owns TKO.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, that's why he's got 2. Okay, well, all right. That's fine.
We already have a pre-order for the Jeff Lemire one.
Sure, I'm
And
not
I think,
surprised.
I think Roxane Gay has one.
Okay. Yeah, I'm happy to carry those. The 2 by the Gotham guy were the ones where I'm like, huh, okay.
And also this week, we got in copies of both the Elite Team, Young Bucks Stand Tall, and Colt Cabana's Wrestling Dreams, all ages books set in the world of professional wrestling. And we got both of these new publisher initiatives, if I may call them that, in a week where no one came in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, perfect timing.
So by the time people do start coming back in, provided they do, even though Wednesday's weather is supposed to be beyond
Yeah,
abysmal.
a nightmare.
Beyond abysmal.
A nightmare.
All those books will have moved from the New This Week section back to or into their new homes. So this was a week
Well,
where...
maybe we'll keep them out there. It depends on what else comes out. Sometimes
Yeah.
we don't need the space that badly, so a couple things can hang around.
Yeah, it's the last of a 5th week of a 5 Wednesday month, so I could see where we would have room
Yeah.
for them. Did you hear Jason Aaron has a new creator-owned book coming out?
No, from who?
Don't know.
Okay.
Art by Stephen Green.
I don't know who that is.
Me neither.
Okay.
And there's progress being made on both The Goddamned and Southern Bastards.
Wow.
I know, right?
It's going
Along
to be
with
an exciting 2020.
everything else he's doing for Marvel and TV shows and whatnot for his stuff. And man, I got something in my eye that is driving me crazy. But I'm like, no, we can finish this. I'll just
Play through the pain.
close one eye and move forward. I only have one more thing on my list, but then I have a whole other topic in a different sheet of paper.
Okay.
This was early news this week, but big news: George Perez announcing his retirement.
Yeah, he had spent the last year or two kind of winding down his commitments. Like, one of the things that he'd kind of stopped doing was, I think, interior artwork. And maybe even covers. He'd reached an age where he just couldn't continue doing them. And now he's bringing an end to his convention appearances. It should be noted he is a scheduled guest at this year's C2E2. So if you have a desire to meet George Perez and you haven't done it,
If you want to get that Teen Titans #2 signed,
I would definitely check out his list of shows for 2019. He is still doing, I think, 2 conventions normally. It's Dragon Con and Fetish Con.
yeah.
So you'll be able to find him at those going forward. But he's mentioned that he has a very limited slots for commissions. And those are going to be pre-sold and I think pre-drawn.
Pre-done, yeah.
So you can
just
pick
them up there.
Yeah, you pick them up at the show, and whoever is commissioning them has to pick them up. You
No
can't send
proxies.
somebody else. But you can still get like head sketches and stuff from George Perez, and I think that's the limit. I think his head sketches is what he's willing to do going forward. But
Yeah.
they're reasonably priced. I can't remember how much, but I remember seeing the price and going, "Man, that's it." I think it's like $100 or something.
Yeah, it's $100. You're right.
Yeah. I think that's a steal for a George Perez head sketch.
I've been lucky enough to have I've met him in the past, and while I think he'll go down being the co-creator of the New Teen Titans, that's like his biggest accomplishment
Sure.
in a career filled with accomplishments. For me, it's always Avengers. He's an Avengers artist.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, classic Avengers stuff, man. And as you pointed out when I was talking about this with you before, he designed Taskmaster.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
That right there.
Right. Yeah.
Deathstroke and Taskmaster? Come on. It's rude to be that good.
There's a guy, he's a guy who has done a ton for the industry, and this is not sad. This is kind of neat that he gets to say, hey, I'm going to
have a farewell tour.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
also be like, I will be able to make enough money off of what I've done to live comfortably.
That's good.
You know, I don't have to worry about getting another job, or like I'll make, you know, he'll get residuals, or he'll get checks for work already committed.
Mm-hmm.
That's great.
Yeah.
I want to say commission, but it's not that word.
Royalty.
Royalty. Thank you. Could not think of that word. I can't think of a lot of words. This is not a good episode for me being able to word.
It's okay. You can just edit those out.
I'm not editing.
Okay.
So thank you, George Perez.
Thanks, George.
You have done wonders for us and to comics in general.
Yeah.
In fact, Marvel's still using your work. There's a Wolverine hidden gem cover that's a George Perez piece coming up. I'm sure we'll have more of those now.
One of the War of the Realms hidden gem variants is a Simonson Thor thing.
Nice. That's accurate, but
I don't know that I love that. I don't know.
I don't like
the
the
hidden
idea.
gem stuff. I don't know.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I wonder if the artists get paid for that.
I don't know. That is a good
I
question.
don't know either. So, all right, this is the point of the show where I'm going to hand Al a piece of paper. You'll see there's things on every side.
Oh, God.
Just worry about this. It's just this repeat. Like this, I thought was too small,
Uh-huh.
but then I tried to do it bigger and it came out badly.
Ugh.
So it's this one. So you're just reading this to be caught up on your own, and so we can talk about it. And I'm going to summarize it for people right now. And on one of the forums,
It's going to be hard for me to read this while you're doing that, but I'll give it a shot.
okay, sorry.
It's okay.
On one of the forums, a retailer had posted about final order cutoffs and initial orders, stating that when they turn in their initial orders, all they turn in are their subscriber numbers, because they don't go in and put their full order in until final orders are due. And that set off a debate with retailers, go figure, about how people do things and why they do it. And it got a little heated, and there were some retailers who were like, hey, let's bring this down a little bit. But it's the difference between having to do your orders fully twice versus giving the publishers the most accurate information each time, and what's more beneficial to you versus what's more beneficial to them.
Okay.
And so, first of all, the person who posted this was... They only gave their subscriber numbers, but that's automatic. If you use a program like Comic Suite, that's built in.
Mm-hmm.
So you're not going through and doing the orders, you're just uploading what already exists in your system.
I mean, I would hope you would do the non-FOC publishers as
Right.
well.
Well, for this discussion, we're just talking about FOC publishers
Okay.
for initial orders.
Okay.
And so, what are your thoughts? And while you say that, I'm going to quickly run out and.
Okay. Boy, I hope I have enough thoughts to make this last.
Also, I want to hear them, but I'm going to be.
Sure. It's some of it is just, you know, every retailer has to run their store in the way that works best for them. There's not a one-size-fits-all way of running a comic shop, and that can lead to some of my frustrations with direct market retailers, where people do things in a way that might seem counterintuitive or might seem less efficient. But, you know, if you're someone who owns a store and someone who is responsible for the day-to-day operation of the store, you have to do things in a way that you understand best, or in a way that you can, you know, replicate week after week after week. So to this person in particular, they feel like the best way to do that is for FOC publishers, you know, on initial order, just submit your club numbers. Then, as you start to get more demand from your customers over the coming weeks, because oftentimes, you know, the extent of your customers' interest, it's not initial order day, it's way closer to when the book comes out. Like, even final order cutoff is maybe just the halfway point of when you're getting that demand from your customers. And in fact, they point out in here, and you may have said this, I couldn't listen and read, they mentioned specifically that they like the idea of being able to do a reorder the Tuesday before a book comes out, because that's when everyone's coming in saying, hey, I want this book. Like, and we see that all the time. Like, the the Friday to Tuesday before a book comes out is when a lot of our orders are placed for new comics. Not, 2 months earlier when we're closing out the catalog, not 3 weeks before when we're doing final order cutoffs. It's those last few days when we're like, hey, this new X-Men comic is coming out. Then people are like, oh, I don't think I'm down for that. Can you put me down for that X-Men comic? And, anyone who's willing to pre-order, to put their money where their mouth is, I appreciate. I don't know that I would feel the same way as a customer, so anyone who's willing to do that, that's great. That helps us a ton. But yeah, for a lot of stores, the ability to get more copies after final order cutoff isn't great because publishers, will lock in their numbers and then not really overprint because they don't want to get stuck with copies. But then when a book hits and the demand basically comes out of nowhere, you're left waiting a month for a second print because there's no copies to get. So I definitely feel for this retailer not being able to meet demand because a publisher has not, stocked Diamond up, basically.
Do you think that publishers use initial orders to set print runs, or do they just wait until they get the FOC numbers?
I have no idea, but I would hope it's the latter. The whole point of final order cutoff is this is the number we need to fill demand before we go to print. So from there they can determine how many extra, what do we think the demand on this book is really going to be versus what we're hearing from retailers.
But that's they have a number and then FOC lets them adjust it. Like we have a number for an initial order and FOC lets us adjust it.
Yeah, I mean, if I gotta assume they're looking at the initial order number, I would hope they're not putting too much stock in it. Yeah,
the initial order number I think is important for us to give us an idea of what we're spending for that month, a month and a half before the FOCs come out. And while we may not pay as close attention to that as we could, and we don't know when things are going to actually ship versus when we think we're going to be paying for them. So ultimately my question is, do you think they should just, for any FOC publisher, do away with initial orders?
No, definitely not. I like the idea of a safety net of, ordering and, let me lock in my numbers early and then adjust them down the line instead of oh, there was a 1 week window where you could have ordered this and you didn't. What if something happens? What if an order doesn't get uploaded? What if we're too busy? What if something happens where we can't do FOCs? We would be screwed. We have a month to do our initial order.
Yeah. Do you think your attitude would be different if you were doing both initial orders and FOCs?
No, because I've done both.
Right.
And I still did it that way. I've always done initial orders and then final orders. I don't... If you have two chances at it, why would you not use both chances? I don't understand. It's the waiting to the last minute thing of... But you could put numbers in before that just in case. Why would you not want the safety net?
One of the answers that I didn't understand was from somebody that for any FOC publisher, they just go through and put a 1 for everything.
I've heard that before.
Now, I'm assuming that they don't have a system, a POS system that automatically calculates subscribers, a Comic Hub or a Mobi or a Comic Suite.
Yeah, I don't know.
Otherwise, those numbers would be different, but that sounds like extra work to change it. But what is the benefit of doing that? And there were some retailers in this that basically everybody did the whole, well, this is the way I do it.
Sure.
And some people are like, I don't understand why you would do that. That doesn't make any sense. And other people are like, well, I don't want to help the publishers out. I want to...
Oh, my God.
Things that... It's very weird because it's exactly what you'd expect with every conceivable answer.
Oh, God, yeah.
But I don't see how it helps you to not have an accurate count.
Yeah, I don't understand it, but again, it's not for me to understand. They're not asking me to do it their way, so I'm not going to ask them to do it my way.
Sure.
It doesn't make a lot of sense, but whatever. There's a ton of things stores do that don't make any sense to me, and the market's still here, so I don't know. I guess it's working out. I would definitely not want publishers to only look at initial order numbers to determine whether or not a book should move forward. That feels... it does not feel like it's using the tools that they've given the direct market successfully. At least wait until FOCs to see if those numbers come up or down. You can always cancel a book. I don't know the terms of service, but I think you can cancel a book after FOCs. So if those numbers come in for a collection or an ongoing series or whatever, then you can cancel it. Like, wait till you get the final numbers. Don't do it off of, essentially, I'm trying to think of a good way to describe this. Temporary numbers. Like, those are not anyone's final numbers.
I'd be curious to go back and learn if DC's recent rash of trade cancellations were before FOCs or just after initial orders.
Yeah, I don't know.
And there were more this week, weren't there? I feel like there was one or two more.
DC does it pretty regularly, and I'm always curious why that is. Like, DC seems to have a higher percentage of collections that are offered that are then canceled and will not be resolicited than Marvel does. And I don't...
Well, I mean, DC
I don't know
outright...
why.
Dan said on a phone call recently that it's outright because the sales don't justify them printing those books.
Right, but how is that possible? Like, because I look at some of the stuff that DC cancels, and some of it's high-end books, and it's like, well, yeah, if you're soliciting a $150 hardcover and the numbers don't come in, it can't make sense to print the minimum you need to print of a book. But some of them are just collections where it's like, how is that coming in a lower number than this Marvel one that Marvel's still printing?
Yeah.
And it's got to have a smaller audience, but maybe it doesn't. Maybe every Marvel trade has a higher sales floor than every DC trade.
Not in our
know.
store.
No, certainly not in our store.
But our store is always different. Every store is different. Everybody's store is different. I'm not saying ours is different, better, different, worse, just different.
Yeah, no, this is interesting to read someone's perspective on how they use things like initial order and final order.
I had a publisher friend text me yesterday asking if we were going to Comics Pro, and I said no. And they said that they were trying to decide if it was valuable for them to do it. And then it just became this long thread of, here's what you'll get out of it, here's why we don't go.
Uh-huh. How much do you like getting yelled at by retailers?
And it
Do
was
you like
it was a lot of
good news.
It was a lot of because you and I are friends. I'm telling it to you this way.
Uh-huh.
If this was someone else, even from your company, asking me, I would be a lot more diplomatic in the way I said it. And they just said, "Well, you're one of the retailers I respect the most. That's why I'm asking you." And I had to say, like, yeah, but people find tremendous value in these meetings.
They absolutely do. I hear it year after year from retailers where they will hands down say that the weekend they spend at the Comics Pro annual membership meeting is the most valuable time of the year for them.
And I tried to
Absolutely.
stress that to this publisher, that retailers do come away with that kind of attitude.
I haven't, but I know plenty of people who have, for sure.
Yeah. Well, this is the week that was in the comics industry where a lot of things were going on, and it seems like nothing moved forward, and the weather is killing us.
Yeah, we were on track to do a decent January 2019, certainly on par with 2018. I don't know if that's going to
No,
happen
I don't think it will.
These last few days were horrible weather-wise, and we get a little bit of a respite, like Sunday and Monday. It goes up a little bit again.
A little bit.
But then we get just crushed next Wednesday and Thursday.
Yep.
So I don't know.
Can't wait. This has been Contest of Challengers, a comics industry business podcast in the dead of winter in Chicago. Thanks for listening.
And keep reading comics.
This has been Contest of Challengers. Thanks for listening. Keep reading comics. Challengers is located at 1845 Northwestern Avenue in the Bucktown neighborhood of Chicago. 773-278-0155. Keep up to date with new releases and events at challengerscomics.com. Like Challengers Comics on Facebook, follow @Challengers on Twitter, and help fund this podcast at patreon.com/challengers.